For 6 weeks, 3-year-old Ivy Exodus was kept alive by blood donations from 6 dedicated strangers. Their precious platelets, almost an exact match to her own, were flown from collection points across Australia to the Children's Hospital at Westmead, where Ivy's family were preparing for a bone marrow transplant donated by her 6-year-old donor brother, Jay. The wait for the first urgent bag of platelets, the clotting component of blood, was the most anxiety-inducing, Ivy's mother Kimberly Exodus said. Ivy was diagnosed with phacoanemia after she did bounce back from a playground bug in April. Her blood tests showed she was dangerously low in hemoglobin and platelets, the clotting agent in blood. Her platelets were so low that nothing would have stopped the bleeding if she got a bump on the head or a bad cut. She would have bled out, Mrs. Exodus said of her daughter and youngest of 3 children. Ivy would need to undergo surgery to insert a central line before her transplant to receive imosuppressants and cytotoxic medication, but her body had begun to create antibodies to the platelet transfusions she was receiving and threatened to reject the donations. Her surgery could not go ahead while her platelet count was so low. She was so sick it was so horrible. She had blood blisters all through her mouth and gums. She was bruised all over, Mrs. Exodus said. Ivy's parents had to stop brushing her teeth for fear the toothbrush would nick it and she would start hemorrhaging. An urgent search began to find donor platelets with proteins called human leukocyte antigens, HLA, that matched Ivy's HLA profile. The Australian Red Cross Blood Service found 2 bags of matched platelets in Perth. They were flown to Sydney overnight and arrived just in time for the central line insertion. Ivy would now need daily platelet transfusions from her 6 unknown donors with matching HLA, whose platelets were collected specifically for the 3-year-old as she waited for her bone marrow transplant. Mrs. Exodus and Ivy's husband James don't know who these individuals are, but can't thank them enough. They kept her alive. They did have to do that. They did have to keep donating of their own accord, Mrs. Exodus said of the anonymous donors. It's hard to explain how much that means to us, when we were able to help her. I would love to be able to tell them how much I appreciate it. Hopefully they see this story. Supplies of platelets are at risk of being exhausted over the Christmas and New Year period unless an additional 4,000 donors roll up their sleeves, the Australian Red Cross Blood Service has warned. New South Wales alone needs 1,000 extra people to book an appointment from December the 26th to January the 2nd to forestall a shortage of blood products crucial for cancer patients who rely on the platelets to prevent internal bleeding as they undergo treatment, as well as trauma patients, new mothers and people with blood disorders. The Australian Red Cross Blood Service will need to collect 3,500 half-litre bags of red cells and platelets, a total of 12,500 donations nationally to meet the demand Australian hospitals are predicting. Blood supplies are particularly vulnerable over the festive season, said service spokeswoman Gemma Falgemeier.